On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers complete another comeback, this one over the Portland Trailblazers. It does not feel the same as Friday nights against Boston did. We'll talk about DeAndre Hunter's big night, plus how the Cavs found themselves in that deep hole against the Blazers. We'll do that and so much more on today's edition of Locked On Cavs.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? My name is Danny Cunningham. You might know me from my time covering the Cleveland Cavaliers, places like my Substack, The Inside Shot, Cleveland Magazine, 92.3 The Fan, and a number of other stops along the way. I want to say thank you to you for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. And if you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me. Click subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. A proud part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode, of course, brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. The Cleveland Cavaliers complete another comeback, this one over the Portland Trailblazers. They win 133-129 in overtime, a game that probably should not have needed overtime, a game that the Cavs didn't necessarily deserve to win, and we will talk about all of those things. But first, I need to start with DeAndre Hunter because he was fantastic for the Cavs. This was easily the best game that he's played since the trade from Atlanta to Cleveland. He was phenomenal on Sunday. He scored 32 points. He grabbed 7 rebounds. He had 5 threes. He had 9 points in overtime alone. He was, I thought, the best player for the Cavs on this day. And I think that this trade that they made is something that raises both the team's floor and the team's ceiling, because this was a game that I don't view as one of this, oh man, the Cavs really played well. The Cavs deserve to win. No, they didn't. They won this game because DeAndre Hunter was phenomenal. They won this game because DeAndre Hunter felt like making big play after big play. Like he just came up clutch down the stretch. He had a great second half. I believe he had 4 points at halftime. So he scored 28 of his 32 points in the second half in overtime of this game. And I think that what makes this game so good for him is that it was with Donovan Mitchell out, who rested in this game. This has been part of the plan, Kenny Atkinson said, with just such a heavy month of March where they have 16 games in 29 days during this month, that they wanted to give Donovan Mitchell this game off. So there's nothing alarming there. It's part of the plan, but that means that DeAndre Hunter is in a little bit of a different role than when Donovan Mitchell is playing for obvious reasons. So DeAndre Hunter started this game instead of coming off the bench. Early returns were not great for anybody. Like the Cavs walk through the first half, I thought, and we will talk about their energy level coming up in segment number 2. But then in the second half, when Darius Garland was not having a great game, he finished the night 4 of 16 shooting. Just overall not a good game from him, and that's going to happen from time to time. And the Cavs missed a ton of shots in the first half, but DeAndre Hunter picked up the scoring load. And now the Cavs are at the point now where I do think, and I think Ty Jerome is kind of on the border of this conversation, just because on a regular basis, I don't know that he's getting the minutes to make this happen. But I think that on a game-by-game basis, like when the Cavs are fully healthy, I think that they have 4 guys that you could look at and say, that guy could score 30 points tonight. I think DeAndre Hunter is in that conversation. I don't know if I've seen enough to be like, yes, for sure, 100%. Like, it's definitely 3. It's definitely Donovan Mitchell. It's definitely Darius Garland. It's definitely Evan Mobley. Like, we know that any night that the Cavs are playing, one of those guys can score 30. I think with what we saw from DeAndre Hunter, like, after watching what he was in Atlanta compared to what he's in Cleveland now, and I think the Cavs are very confident in their player development staff. And I think they've done a good job with player development. I don't think you have to look much further than Darius Garland and Evan Mobley for that. But I do think that there's more there with DeAndre Hunter that maybe we haven't seen. And I think that a game like Sunday can be a glimpse of that, to where maybe there's a game, maybe in the postseason this year, where the Cavs are fully healthy, and you hope that they're fully healthy, and DeAndre Hunter goes off for 27 points. Like, would that be a surprising thing? I don't think it would be. After watching the way, not just that and part of this is because he did this. And yes, he got to the free throw line quite a bit. He shot 12 free throws on Sunday. And oh boy, are we going to have a conversation about officiating coming up in segment number 3 today. So he got to the line, and that was part of it. But he scored 32 points on 15 shots. It's not as if he needed 25 shots to get 30 points, because that's not going to be something like that. Opportunity for him is not going to be there on a regular basis. And he's not going to get to the free throw line 12 times regularly. Like, that's just not who he's going to be. But the way that he can play both on and off the ball, I think, was a really big key for the Cavs on Sunday, because all 5 of his 3-point makes were catch and shoot opportunities. The one, it wasn't like an immediate catch and shoot, but it was like a catch. He took a jab step and then he went up with it and made it from the right wing. So that is certainly part of his game. We've also seen these pull-up 3-pointers where he's shooting threes off the dribble. Today, we saw him attacking the basket where he was putting the ball on the floor and either getting to a floater, getting to the rim, getting fouled. Like, he was just doing different things as far as that goes. I think his offensive game, as far as scoring, is so complete. He's not there as a playmaker. Like, I think that when he gets the ball, I think his assist percentage is pretty low. He's not somebody that I look at and go, yeah, that guy's going to find open guys routinely. I don't think that is necessarily part of his game, but I don't want to call him a break glass in case of emergency scorer, because I think he's more consistent than that. I think he's a little bit better than that. But I think it's a really nice thing for the Cavs to know because of this game. And it's not to say he's going to do this every time that a key score for the Cavs is out, but it is nice for them to know that DeAndre Hunter is capable of having this type of game where he can be the best player on the floor. And Denny Avdia had a great game for Portland, and overall, he was probably the best player in this game on Sunday. But I thought DeAndre Hunter was the best player for the Cavs. And if you can be the best player on a team that has won 50 out of its first 60 games at any time, I think that speaks to just how good DeAndre Hunter is and how great of a fit he's been in Cleveland. Obviously, they've won 10 straight. They haven't lost a game since they traded for him, and they won the 2 previous before that. But I think that we knew he raised their ceiling when the Cavs traded for him. Like, they needed a wing like him. He made them better. It was always going to be well, how long does this take to mesh? And I think it has come together quicker than anybody could have anticipated. I just don't think that anybody will. And the Cavs have spoken very highly about how quickly DeAndre has picked things up. But when they made the trade, there's no way that Kobe Altman sat in his office or wherever he was when the trade was completed and thought, yeah, we're not going to skip a beat. Or there's no way Kenny Atkinson thought that, because there's always integration, right? When you're bringing in a new player, they have to learn how things work. They have to learn their new teammates. They have to learn all these things. And I don't think that DeAndre Hunter has skipped over that process, right? Like, it's not just, oh, I don't have to worry about that. No, that is still part of it. But I think he's handled it so smoothly. And I think it's gone by, not that it's all the way over, but I think it has maybe gone at a pace that's been a little bit more accelerated than anybody could have imagined. And I don't think that, unless that were true, I don't think that the game he has on Sunday happens. Like, I don't think that he's capable of going for 32 and 8 and really winning a game for the Cavs unless he's super comfortable with where he's at. Like, I just don't think you come in and do that right away. That's why you very rarely see teams that make big midseason trades be immediately successful. And of course, as I say that, who are the 2 best teams since the trade deadline? Well, it's the 2 teams that made the biggest trade, because it's the Lakers, who they won again on Sunday night, and the Cavs, who haven't lost a game. Like, those have been 2 of the best 3 teams in basketball since the trade deadline passed and since those 2 teams made the trade. So I do think that's a little bit funny. But Hunter was fantastic on Sunday. I continue to be impressed with him on both ends of the floor, because it's not just offense. It's not just defense. It does feel like every time the Cavs need a big shot, and I guess that maybe these opportunities have been a little limited, because until these last 2 games against Boston on Friday and against Portland on Sunday, the Cavs haven't exactly been playing in close contests, right? Like, there just haven't been these big moments to see what you're made of, sort of. And I do think that's another really good sign about this, is that DeAndre's played in 2 really big moments. Okay, maybe 1 really big moment and 1 close game, because Friday was a big moment and Sunday was a close game. I'm not going to call a Sunday game against Portland without Donovan Mitchell a big moment. But when things tighten up, he's been really good. And I think that is something that matters. Not that Sunday against Portland is any indication of what the postseason is going to look like, because I just don't think that's true. But I do think that it's something that when you get into clutch time, how do you perform? And the fact that DeAndre Hunter has been really good, I thought Friday in Boston, and then in a game without Donovan Mitchell that was close, where he was kind of the guy late because Evan Mobley had fouled out too. That's another part of this. I think that's a really great sign for just how much better this Cavs team can get with DeAndre Hunter in the lineup. They've been, since the trade, they have been the best team in basketball by just about every metric. They still have the best offense. They're the number 3 defense in that span. They've got the best net rating by a wide margin because, of course, they do. That's who they are. But in the last 8 games the Cavs have played, I'll talk about this a little bit more on tomorrow's podcast. The Cavs are first in offensive rating, 125.8. They are 4th in defense at 107.4. Their net rating is 18.4. That is nearly 5 points better than the second best team in basketball. DeAndre Hunter is a big part of that, and those numbers would not look like those numbers right now if not for the second half that he played against Portland on Sunday. It was masterful, and I think it's a really good sign for things to come because of the different ways he can attack, how good of a defender he is, how versatile he is too. Like, it's not just that he can play 2-3, and we even saw him play a little bit of center on Sunday. It's not just that he can do those things. It's that he does everything really, really well. And that's a really big part of this. But we do have to talk about how the Cavs found themselves in an 18-point hole with a minute and 18 seconds left in the third quarter. Plus, we are going to talk about Ty Jerome's game, and we will get to it, the officiating on Sunday. That's all straight ahead right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action, well, it's just getting started. There's no better place to get in on that action than with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game. So even if you miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in on the action. Plus, if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I do appreciate the people that tweeted at me on Saturday about what the live odds for the Cavs to win in Boston were when they were down 25-3 in the first quarter. I'm going to ask you because foolishly, I was not on the FanDuel app during Cavs Blazers on Sunday, so I don't know what their live odds were when they were down by 18 with a minute left in the third quarter. I would love to know. Please tweet them at me or, send them my way on Blue Sky, whatever your preferred social media is. But I want to know what your odds would have been on FanDuel Sportsbook, because their live betting feature keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether your team is down by 18 points with a minute left in the third quarter, or maybe you think that somebody like, a certain small forward the Cavs just acquired is going to hit a clutch 3. You never have to feel like you miss your chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. And right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com. That is FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. You can find the show anywhere you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drops a 5-star rating. Leave us a nice review. Be a friend. Tell a friend about Locked On Cavs. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. So the Cavs found themselves in a hole. They were down by, as I mentioned, 18 points with a minute left in the third quarter in this one, and they were trailing this game by 12 points at halftime. And the reason they were trailing at halftime was, I thought, a mix of a couple things. I thought it was a mix of a lack of energy. Like in the first half, the Cavs looked like a team that was coming off of a really big win. Do you guys remember what the Cavs looked like after they played OKC and won? That was the game of the year against the Thunder. It was a fantastic game, super high level execution on both sides, both the Cavs and Oklahoma City. And then the next game they played Toronto, and Darius Garland had 40 points in that game. He was really, really good. But that was a game that, as you watch, you're like, I don't know that the Cavs really deserve to win this one. Like, they're winning this game because they're the more talented team, not because they're necessarily playing better. And maybe the energy level wasn't where it was supposed to be. And that's kind of how I felt on Sunday afternoon in the first half. Like the Cavs just didn't have the energy. Defensively, they were okay. Like they gave up 54 points in the first half, and you'll live with that. That's not that big of a deal. Offensively, they were terrible. They were down 54-42 at halftime. They were not generating good looks, I didn't think. They were not making the good looks that they did generate. Like nothing seemed to really be going their way offensively. And listen, give Portland credit for a lot of that. Like I thought Toumani Camara was really good. I thought that Portland did a really, really good job defensively against the Cavs. I thought they made life difficult on Darius Garland, who did not have a great game. He was 4 of 16, as I mentioned, just 2 of 7 from 3. I thought they did a good job of making life difficult on guys for the Cavs. And that matters in this conversation. But when a team is 50-10, the way that the Cavs are, and listen, Portland is not a team that is as bad as their record is. Okay. They're 27-34 after this game. They were at one point 13-28. So what's the math tell you there? It tells you they have gone, 14-6 in their last 20 games? They've been really good. Like they have been a good basketball team for about 20 games. Now they're not a playoff team. Like they still have a long way to go, all that, but the talent is there and they're a good team. They had a good game. Give them credit. But I thought that this was more about the Cavs. I thought it was more about the Cavs looking like they had an emotional hangover from Friday night in Boston. And I don't think that's a big deal because the Cavs are, for the rest of the year, and there might be a game here or there where this isn't true, but I do think that for the most part, for the rest of the year, the Cavs are going to have to manufacture their own juice a little bit, right? Because that build up to the Boston game, what did I talk about all at the end of last week? How that's the biggest game left on the calendar. They don't have a game the rest of the season as big as Cavs Celtics last Friday. And that is still true. And in no world was Cavs Blazers on a Sunday afternoon at 3:30 going to fit that bill ever. But even look at the upcoming schedule. Does Cavs Bulls on Tuesday night do the same thing for you that Cavs Celtics did if you remember the Cavs? Probably not. Like you're going to get up a little bit higher for those marquee games. Your energy level just might not be the same on a random game. And when you're following up one of those marquee games, it can be difficult to reach that level. It can be a challenge. We've seen that before with this Cavs team. I think that is what we saw for the most part in the first half. Now, they also missed some shots that they're used to taking, or used to making, I should say. Like this has been the best shooting team in the entire NBA, right? Like they've been the best offense in basketball essentially all season long. They've been shooting the best percentage from beyond the arc essentially all season long. And what did they do in the first half? They don't shoot the ball well, whether it was inside the arc, outside the arc, it didn't necessarily matter. They couldn't shoot the ball well. They were 5 of 20 from beyond the arc. They were shooting 32% from the floor at halftime. So this was much more of an offensive issue when you talk about exactly why things were not going well. But I think it was more an energy issue. Like the ball wasn't moving the way that we are used to seeing the ball move. Now, I do want to give Ty Jerome a shout out here too, because I thought he played well in this game, even if it wasn't necessarily a great offensive game, but he had 25 points. He was, I thought, a real bright spot for the Cavs. He had 18 points in the second half too, which, that's big time stuff. And he just continues to step up in games that one of Darius Garland or Donovan Mitchell don't play in. And those games have been few and far between. That pairing has been relatively healthy. Like there have been minor bumps and bruises. Like Donovan Mitchell missed a game because of a shoulder injury. But for the most part, the games that he's missed this year have been designated under rest. And Darius Garland, missed a couple of games with a hip injury. And he missed a game, I think, with a groin injury or a back injury back in November. But he, for the most part, has been pretty available. But in the games that those guys have not played, Ty Jerome has been awesome. I thought he was awesome again on Sunday. He deserves a lot of credit. I thought Max Strus was pretty good on Sunday too. He finishes with 14 points. He made a few big threes. He made the one near the end of regulation that put the Cavs up 3 And then the Cavs went to the, foul when you're up 3 strategy. And that is something that they've done all year. Like that led to the game going to overtime, of course, but I can't knock the Cavs for doing that because that's who they've been. Like if this was a new strategy and they didn't know what they were doing and they screwed up the end of the game because of that, I think you'd have a right to be pretty mad about it as a fan. But in watching it, like they've done that every time they've been up 3. That has been Kenny Atkinson's go-to strategy. When the Cavs are up 3, they're going to foul. Now, he did say he would have liked a little bit more time to come off the clock and just like it was in a little bit of a weird zone to foul in terms of clock. And then, part of the reason why the Cavs are confident in doing that is because look at who they can put on the floor as free throw shooters when they're going to inbound the ball after a free throw make. You've got Darius Garland, who went to the line and split a pair of free throws, but he's a 90% free throw shooter. Ty Jerome is a 90% free throw shooter. Sam Merrill is a 90% free throw shooter. DeAndre Hunter was on the floor. He's a good free throw shooter. Like you have guys that can go out there and make free throws. So that's part of the reason why the Cavs are confident in doing that. It just didn't work on Sunday. And I don't think that's a big deal. I wouldn't expect Kenny Atkinson to change his strategy because Darius Garland missed a free throw. Analytically, it says you should follow up by 3. Like you increase your chances of winning by doing that. You can just bleed that time off the clock. Is it the most exciting basketball in the world? Absolutely not. I would rather watch games end another way. But in terms of winning, which is what the goal for that team is on a nightly basis, that's how it should be handled. Like that, I do think is a strategy I agree with, even if it's not one that I love watching play out. And it didn't work because a 90% free throw shooter missed one. It happens from time to time. The fact that the Cavs were able to get over that and still find a way to win, I do think is yet another good sign. This was not the best game I've ever watched, and this part had nothing to do with the Cavs. I'll tell you why next right here on Locked On Cavs. Today's show is brought to you by DoorDash. NBA fans, get ready. They swoosh, you save. Thanks to Dash Pass. Every time a player drops 50 or more points in a game, you score a huge deal the next day. It's simple. Any player scores 50 or more in a game during the 2024-2025 NBA regular season, that's this one. Dash Pass members get 50% off an order, up to $10 off the next day from noon to midnight. So maybe you wanted to stay up late because someone on the West Coast had it going on. Anthony Edwards, he scored 44 on Sunday. Maybe you were watching that game against Phoenix, just hoping, praying, wishing that he'd get to 50 and you could use this deal the next day. Now he didn't get there, but you should still use DoorDash because you probably don't want to, you're not going to want to make your lunch before you go to work early on Monday morning, especially with it being a Monday. No one wants to do that. Had he scored 50, you'd be able to get 50% off, though, up to $10 on that next order. So sign up for Dash Pass and be ready to save. When any player scores 50 or more in a game, Dash Pass members get 50% off an order the next day, up to $10 off. Just use promo code NBA50, that is NBA50, from noon to midnight after a 50-point game on eligible orders at participating merchants. Must have an active Dash Pass account. Terms apply. Visit DoorDash to learn more. Thank you again for making Locked On Cavs your first listen today and every day. Like I said earlier, if you're watching the show on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, hit that notification bell so you don't miss the latest Locked On Cavs content. This was not my favorite Cavs game that I've ever watched, and I think a lot of you would probably agree with that sentiment. And part of the reason why, as I pull up my trusty final box score from the game, the Portland Trailblazers went 31 of 35 from the free throw line. The Cleveland Cavaliers went 30 of 35 from the free throw line. Let's do some simple math, folks. What is 35, the number of free throw attempts by the Portland Trailblazers, plus 35, the number of free throw attempts by the Cleveland Cavaliers? Well, folks, time's up. The answer is 70. There were 70 combined free throws in this game. That is a number that is too high. There were too many fouls called. I thought this was a very poorly officiated game. A lot of guys in that Cavs locker room also thought this was a poorly officiated game. Kenny Atkinson was asked about the number of free throws attempted, and he basically said, I don't want to touch that. I'm not getting fined. He He did not want to criticize the officials because when that happens, you are going to, for the most part, get a letter, probably an email, maybe a text, phone call. I don't know how the NBA does it when they fine you, but there's going to be a press release put out that says so-and-so has been fined $25,000 for critical comments of officiating. And that happens all the time. That is part of this. I think we are going to see one of those letters directed at a member of the Cavs. I would bet that Ty Jerome is going to probably be fined by the NBA for the comments that he made after the game. Now, Ty was handed a technical foul by official Natalie Sago, I believe is how you pronounce her last name. It's Sago. She did not have a very good game. I thought she really struggled as an official in this game, and the Cavs certainly agreed with that. She gave a technical foul to Ty Jerome. She gave a technical foul to DeAndre Hunter. And of course, we don't know DeAndre Hunter very well yet. Like, he's somebody in that locker room that I'm still getting to know on a professional level. Like, I know Ty Jerome. I know Max Strus. Like, I know those guys that have been in that locker room all season or in seasons prior. Like, you get to know who they are as people a little bit. I'm not, sitting here acting like I'm friends with them, but I know who those guys are. I know what they're about. I know how they act. And DeAndre Hunter has been here for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever. So we don't know him, but he seems like a very quiet, mild-mannered guy. And him picking up a technical foul was an eyebrow raiser, I think, to say the least. And then after the game, Ty Jerome was asked about the number of free throws taken by both teams and the lack of ability, I think, for this game to find a flow. And that much I absolutely agree with. Like, this game had no flow. It was a tough watch because there were whistles all the time. There were too many fouls called. The Blazers were called for 26 fouls. The Cavs were called for 27 fouls. Like, it was not the basketball game itself, despite how good the Cavs offense was in the second half, where they scored, 91 points in the second half in overtime. It was not an easy on the eyes basketball game. It was a tough watch because of how many stoppages in play there were. There were a lot of reviews. It was not the product that the NBA wants it to be. So Ty was asked about the lack of flow because of the foul calls. And it is important I read this quote verbatim because I do think Ty's going to get fined for it. But he said, "Yeah, I thought the refs were really bad tonight, especially Natalie. She was really bad. So when stuff like that happens, they kind of lose control of the game. Keep your head. I thought that first half was ridiculous. The third quarter was horrendous, and you just got to keep your head and keep playing." I don't disagree with anything that Ty said there. Now, the NBA is going to be mad that he said it, but I do think that it was a little bit of frustration on his part, but I also think it was a little bit standing up for that locker room as a whole. Not that Ty is the leader of the locker room, but he is beloved in there. Like, those guys love Ty Jerome, and that group really does get along as a whole. But I thought that he said this one as a way to voice frustration, and I totally get it because he picked up a tech. This was not a well called game. There was no flow to it whatsoever. It was a tough watch, and early in the game, I thought the Blazers were the much more physical team. Part of that, the Cavs maybe not having the energy level that they should have was Portland was more physical on defense, and that resulted in the Cavs being the team that had, at one point, I think twice as many fouls called against them than Portland did. So that didn't necessarily make sense to me. And there were a few fouls that were called in this game. It's just like, what is happening here? DeAndre Hunter, the one offensive foul, he got called as attempting a layup. Like, they said he hooked the guy in the air, which I've never seen called before. And I don't see how that's a foul there. So it was tough. And I appreciate the honesty that Ty spoke with. And if I had to bet, I think that honesty is probably going to cost him $25,000. I would bet that he's going to get fined for that, but that is what it is. I don't think that he's wrong. I don't disagree with his comments. The NBA is going to disagree with his comments because that's how this stuff works. But overall, he had a really good game, and he said what he said because I think there was a lot of frustration in that locker room with the way that this game was called. But overall, the Cavs get a win. Like, they come back from down 18. It's the first time since the 97-98 season in which the Cavs have had back-to-back wins in which they were down by 18 points or more. Ideally, I don't think they want to be down by 18 points on Tuesday when they take on the Chicago Bulls, but I do think that they'll have a little bit more energy. I just think that they'll be back to normal because this was a great emotional letdown game. You look at the record of the team coming in, it's not great, but if you look beyond the record, okay, that's actually a pretty good team there. It's coming off of, the biggest come from behind win of the season on the road against your right now Eastern Conference rival. This was a perfect spot for a letdown, and it happened. But the fact that the Cavs were able to erase that letdown as quickly as they were, I mean, they were down by 18 with, I think, 13 minutes and 18 seconds left in regulation, and they probably should have won this game in regulation had they not screwed up the end of game execution. So it was another reminder that even without Donovan Mitchell, offensively, they can explode at any time. Like, they are an incredibly potent offense. It's incredible to watch. That offense was just asleep for the first 24 minutes. Really, I don't want to say for the first three quarters because they did score 37 in the third. They just didn't defend all that well. Part of which was free throws. But overall, I think that any win on Sunday against this Blazers team would have been a good one because of what happened. And that has nothing to do with Portland. That has nothing to do with Sunday. That has everything to do with what happened on Friday night. Following that up, especially without Donovan Mitchell, I think was always going to be a tough task. And the fact that the Cavs found a way to get through that with a win, yet another good sign in a season that has been filled with good signs. Now, the Cavs are on the road on Tuesday. They're in Chicago taking on the Bulls. They look to move to 51-10. The Cavs are just the 12th team in NBA history to win 50 of their first 60 games. Of the 11 that have done it before, 6 of them have won the NBA Finals. 7th lost the NBA Finals. And then there was the Milwaukee Bucks in the 2019-2020 season, which of course was interrupted by the pandemic. The Portland Trailblazers back in 77-78, Bill Walton got hurt in the team's 60th game, didn't play again that regular season, did play in 2 postseason games, but really was not the same. Like, that team just fell apart because of no Bill Walton. They lost in the first round. The Dallas Mavericks that lost to the We Believe Warriors, and the San Antonio Spurs of 2015-16, who lost to the Thunder in the second round. The team won 67 games. No one remembers them. But overall, Cavs are in great company right now. They will go for win number 51 on Tuesday against Chicago. But before that, what will happen is I will be back with another edition of Locked On Cavs right here, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, anywhere else. Drop us a 5-star review. Be a friend. Tell a friend. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure a friend is subscribed as well. If you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that thumbs up button for me, click subscribe, hit the notification bell as well, and go check out the Locked On Cavs daily newsletter because it is your one stop for everything Cavs that you need delivered right to your inbox. You can sign up for free at lockedondaily.com. That is lockedondaily.com. And I will be back tomorrow with more Locked On Cavs.